Welcome to Overeducated and Underemployed. Today we've got a really cool episode. I had the chance to sit down with Jay Gonzalez from the Drive-By Truckers the weekend that the Sloan brothers, Jay Gonzalez split EP came out. I went to the release party. Got to see Jay play. Lee Baines played afterwards. It was an awesome show. Jay has always been super kind, and he was gracious enough to sit down with me for a little over an hour. And we talk about his early music influences, talk about different things he did to make ends meet before being a full-time musician. And I really enjoyed talking to him. I think you're going to enjoy listening to it. Here's my interview with Jay Gonzalez of the Drive-By Truckers. I'm here with Jay Gonzalez, and I'm just going to dive into it and start with the question I ask everybody first.
Sure.
What's the first song you remember loving?
Oh, God, that's tough. The first one I remember being inquisitive about, hearing, and then trying to find out who it was. And I don't remember what year it was. I know it came out around 76, but it was a Paul McCartney song. It was a Wings song called Let 'Em In. And I remember, I have a vivid memory of being in bed thinking about the song and asking my mom, singing the chorus to the song and asking her if it was a Beatles song, and she didn't know. But years later, I heard it again and I realized who it was. And
More or less.
Yeah, from the beginning, I guess I was going to be into that. I always loved the Beatles and stuff, but we were never a record collecting family or anything like that. So it was always radio, and my dad had a small record collection, and I think, ironically enough, he had the Blue Beatles record collection, the second collection, the Blue album, and,
the anthology.
Yeah, and that was great. But he also had Paul McCartney's Ram album, Paul Blinda's, and I think that was a big thing, was listening to that even before I really dove into the Beatles stuff. Yeah. I was doomed from the start.
Yeah, Paul and I have the same birthday.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. He's one of those. He's actually, for a long time, he was like my least favorite Beatle. And honestly, it was watching the Get Back documentary, and I really started to just see how wrong I had been about him, to be honest.
Right. I think people's favorite Beatle, just like anything, they're these archetypes, personality-wise, and you either relate to them or not. And I also think him being the most, maybe not friendly, but at least offensive Beatle is why, in general, a lot of people, he's their favorite. But then also, if you have any edge to, you're gonna lean Lennon. And then in recent times, I agree with it, but how many people I know are George is their favorite, and it surprised me for a while.
I feel like he had some of the best solo stuff.
He did, absolutely. He started.
They were all great.
No, he really did. I think, especially right at the start with All Things Must Pass, I think because he was constipated because they wouldn't let him play any of his songs. Or record his songs. They cut versions of All Things Must Pass, but they wouldn't put it on an album, which is insane, but in a way made for a better album for him.
Right, yeah, for sure. And when you can see in Get Back his dynamic, by then he had given up on doing anything other than just following directions.
Yeah.
And I thought that was like really telling.
It is, and it's a little bit sad when you see like John barely listening to his song, or Paul putting him. But I think it's a sibling thing, and he was the younger sibling, and at that age, you're still, even in your 20s, you still act like when you're teenagers and you're 2 years older than the other person. It could be, it might as well be 10 years.
And then, like, I've heard Paul say that Ringo wasn't even the best drummer in the Beatles.
Right. He said it, but he was joking. It's such a funny thing to say. It's such a dick move. But it is the style is everything. Ringo's style is just. Paul's a great drummer, but you think of the parts and everything. I'm defending Ringo now, which is ridiculous, but it is I love. I don't know.
I mean, I've got a special place in my heart for all of them,
Oh,
in some way, shape, or form.
Yeah, it's a little suspect when I do meet people, and I do believe there are people who don't like them, and I think I don't know if it's always the music per se, but I'm sure it's just having it shoved down your throat.
Well, sure, and there, even if you don't like them, like you can't deny that you were influenced. Like no matter, even if you're like, I hate the Beatles.
Yeah,
clearly influenced everything in our culture, and like I would say, there's only been one person that didn't mention a Beatles song or related as the answer to that question too. Like it's super common for that to be like the first artist to latch on to.
Sure.
And I think it's really telling too that you were able to recognize who you had that recognition right away. You were like, "Is this the Beatles?"
Yeah.
I think that's pretty telling too.
It is, because I think that song. It must have been. I was born in '73. I must have been 6 or 7 maybe at that time. So yeah, they were all over the place at that point, and I think it's weird now when you see stuff online where kids don't know who they are, and it's natural, and we are at the end of not the end of rock and roll, but we're if you're looking at the history of music.
I mean, Lester Bangs was saying that 50 years ago.
He was right. You're right, but I feel like it's just inevitable when you see jazz or any style and how any popular music has a shelf life, a certain amount.
What I do think is what you're onto. I'm not sure genre really exists that much anymore. So in that sense, they're like, it's all dead.
I think it's such a different world. We're not all listening to the same stations or the top 40, and we are. There is a general, but it just seems so spread out due to the internet.
Well, I think it's not just music, right? Like I can't think of the last time other than like Baby Yoda or something where we all were into the same thing.
Yeah.
It doesn't happen very often.
No, anymore. TV shows occasionally, and usually not TV shows that are on network TV. It's a Severance or something, or it's like there are little things that pop up, but it's interesting. Yeah, I think it's really good in a way that any kid can just go on YouTube now and listen to anything and be into something from the other side of the world, something super obscure, as opposed to back in the day when you can find it, but you'd go to the library or something, but it's harder. It's not just going to pop up in your feed now. Now it's just all of a sudden you can hear some music from Eastern Europe or something that's just in the back of a video game or someone's YouTube video.
Right.
But it is interesting. I certainly, when it all started, when the internet, like late '90s, early 2000s, I was head over heels for it musically, because it was also free music was coming. If you were looking for obscure stuff like I was at that time, or some pop music, obscure '60s stuff or whatever, you can find it so easily and get it, and not good for people making money for their music, but good for people who are looking for music.
Yeah, well, and the money thing is definitely a problem, but it also has made it easier for bands and artists to find their audience too. Like the reverse is also true. So,
it is.
It's a blessing. It's both. It's a double-edged.
It is. But I'm all about it. I get caught in going down rabbit holes of certain styles of music, and you can find anything on YouTube, and I do love it. It's fun.
But I think that highlights like just a big difference between like somebody who's really into music and like a casual listener. It's like casual listeners never talk about going down rabbit holes.
No.
But with
musical, yeah. But they also come across stuff that they wouldn't, and it's easy for them to just find, oh, I like this and get it, as opposed to, I don't know, it's an interesting thing. It's all right there, but it also, I feel like, at least the problem with me is I used to spend more time with something went, if I spent the money going to a record store, going somewhere and buying it, and then didn't like it right away, but you don't have any other option, so you listen to it 3 or 4 times, and then all of a sudden you realize you fall for it. Whereas it's a lot harder for me anyway, and I think pretty. It's a pretty common example of someone who's short attention span,
Yeah.
and that's been shortened even more. And if I hear someone's new album, it's if I listen to it once, if I listen to it twice, it's amazing. You know what I mean? Even if it's someone that I really love, it's hard. But I also have some. I think it being my profession or whatever, or what I do, I'm also doing it all the time, so that there's less time for me to listen as I used to have.
As like a fan.
Yeah. I think most musicians are fans, but it varies. I know a lot of folks that don't listen to, a lot of music at all, who are musicians, because they're just doing their own thing. And I think there's no right or wrong way, but I have found I'm listening to music constantly, but I feel like it's a lot less than I used to.
Do you ever, like, knowing that now that you're conscious of that, do you sometimes, I'm going to force myself to listen to this 2 or 3 times before I even pass?
Yeah, I try.
Yeah.
I wish I was a little more. I wish I had a little more structure and a little more. What is the word? I wish I had a better vocabulary. I wish I would give things a go more, but I do tend to try to. If someone suggests something, even if I don't love it at first, you find you try to look at it through their eyes, and especially someone you respect who turns around to something musically, and then it does. A lot of times it shows itself. You realize it's just there's so much of it is just what your taste is. I've jokingly said there's no good or bad music. It's just what you like and what different people like, and I think that's pushing it a little bit, but it's.
Yeah, I almost say the opposite. There's no such thing as like genre. There's just good and bad.
Yeah, there is, but it's interesting if you think of if someone comes up in a certain part of the world or something, and what they grow up hearing all the time is going to influence their.
Oh, sure.
You know what I mean? So.
It's completely subjective.
It's subjective, and also you think of it in the time you grew up as well, and then there's the baggage of what kind of social things that the song has. But it's I think it would be, even if everybody just heard a song, didn't know who did it, and just, I don't know. I think you bring a lot to what you're listening to.
Yeah, no, 100%. Yeah, I think the analogy I like to think about with it is, if you think about, and I don't know if you're really into sports at all, but if you think about somebody who's like a fan of a team,
right,
and what the reasons are for them being a fan of that team, they're pretty arbitrary most of the time, or at least very tied to the person and their individual experience, where they grew up,
absolutely,
what player they latched onto. And I think it's very similar with the kind of music that you like, and especially if you're only exposed to like a certain kind of music growing up.
True. I mean, I think
it's harder to break out of it.
It is. I think now the other issue is, if you think of someone growing up in a village in the mountains, and somewhere where all they hear is the folk music of the surrounding areas, like, obviously I'm talking way back, but even in the last century, maybe you have radio and stuff comes in, but you're
isolated.
Bringing what your ears are. You're isolated, but you hear things. Everybody hears things differently and likes different elements, and also you realize that now with style and production styles in popular music, how there was a time where I came up in the 80s, really, for all intents and purposes. The music I tend to lean towards is 60s, 70s, and generally speaking, but realistically, I was 10 years old in 83, and it was like, that was from sort of 79 to 89 was like pretty influential musically. And then in the 90s, I would never listen to anything that was 80s, the 80s pop, huge drum sound kind of stuff. And stayed away from it. But I loved it when it came out at that time. And now all of a sudden it's this many years later, so much indie music is influenced by the 80s stuff, and a lot of those sounds are popular again, and I'm like, all of a sudden I am liking these sounds again. And so it's a lot of it is fashion and time and
something you said earlier, like, it's not being shoved down your throat now.
It's true. And the thing I realize, and here's where you get the people who say, "Oh, that's not how they did it back then." I hear records where it is influenced by 80s production and synthesizers and stuff, but it's like it's all mixed in with everything that's happened since. But I think my initial reaction was like, that's not how they're trying to do this, and that's not how you do this. And I think that's coming from a point where I was always trying to copy stuff from the 60s and 70s. You realize that you just make it, and whatever happens, and you don't want it to sound exactly like. There's so much has happened musically and otherwise since then that's going to influence you. So I think it's the key. In the last few years, I've been just trying to not try to, oh, this is this type of song, this is this type of song when I'm recording something or going for a genre. At this point, it's like just trying to actually, you try to do something original. I think the key is just like doing it and not just letting all your influences come in and mix up. I think really the really good artists are always have known to do that since they were young. I think most people, and myself included, it takes time to realize that you're a product of your influences, good and bad, and you gotta just accept it. And basically, in the end, it's whatever you're trying to make, how does that sound or look, or depending on whatever your medium is. If it works, then it works. The process is getting there is, I don't know, I feel like you have to be real open about it and just let it all in and then edit it later.
Yeah. That kind of reminds me of this Ben Folds song. You got to learn to live with what you are. And you just have to just accept it all and do something with it.
It's true. What album is that? Is that?
It's on. I think the album ended up being Songs for.
Oh, Silver.
But it was on those EPs that came out in the early 2000s. Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah,
Speed Graphic, I think, was the one it was on. So let's talk about when you were young and your music. Like, you started playing music really young. Was that your initiative, or was that like something you thought, like your parents thought would be good for you because they saw?
Yeah, a little bit of both, probably. Yeah.
How much? It sounds like you knew you loved music really young.
I think my memory is so shot, but from what I remember, I always liked music, but I had a neighbor who was an older gentleman who played violin, and I think he mentioned to my parents that maybe I should. I would always be whistling and singing songs, and so he said maybe you should take piano lessons or something. And I think that was a real common thing back in the day. I assume it still happens, but I feel we were at the tail end of that era where pianos were still normal in people's houses, and there was piano sheet music in the back of the record store. It was a different thing. And
my mom worked in one of those stores in
cool.
in the late 70s.
Yeah, it's great. I don't regret it at all. I think my mom would always push me to find whatever I was gonna do, and I think there was a lady down the street, and she took it when I was 7, and at that point it was the time of Billy Joel, and I was in New York, so there was at that point he had done this Glass Houses album, which was his kind of rock and roll new wave album, in air quotes, but I happened across that album with my mother in a store, and I bought it, and that was now I definitely want to play piano, and I'd started listening to stuff. And Elton John, I remember loving the song Daniel, and I'm sure a lot of stuff. But I was getting into the sort of like super popular versions of that were influenced by new wave stuff like Hall and Oates and stuff. So basically, all these singer songwriters that were trying to change with the times and doing these sort of albums after hearing Blondie and the Pretenders and stuff, and trying to do the stuff anyway. Piano lessons were fine, but I would walk down the street once a week and do it, and I did that until I started getting into other karate and ninja stuff, wrestling, other kid stuff, and then I quit that. And then a few years later, the rock and roll thing started with guitar, and I started getting into bands, rock bands, more than top 40 radio, like a lot of people do. But so I had the piano thing at first, and
were you playing classical piano mostly, or were you playing like some of the Billy Joel and Elton John?
Yeah, it was, I think, pretty common thing with at that point too, was like very classically based and all the simple Beethoven typical stuff, and then a little simple ragtime stuff. But then I could bring the Billy Joel Step 1 or whatever, Volume 1, these real simple piano pieces, and I would do that. And so I was listening to top 40, playing that kind of stuff, always wanting to be a singer songwriter. But then as I got older, in my teens, I mostly wanted to play guitar in a band, and I always wrote songs and stuff and had bands and did original stuff, but it just varied a little bit stylistically. I don't done the same shit really. Now that I think of looking back, in my head I was trying different things, but I had to. I'm first generation born here. My dad's from Puerto Rico technically, but he came in the 50s, Puerto Rican influx into New York and stuff, and my mom came from Italy via Montreal, and they wanted me to go to college, and so that's how I got into classical music, guitar. I was playing Ozzy Osbourne and Randy Rhoads stuff, and he had the classical thing, he had the classical PCP, and I played that at my high school, like on the school's Stratocaster, and then this classical guitarist came in, and the teacher introduced me, and they got me lessons. So then I studied that, and then I went to college for classical guitar, but ironically met the band that I moved down to Athens with there, and always played in bands up there, and basically that's what led me to Athens right after graduation. So I've been.
Do you remember what the first like rock band was that you really latched onto, or like any shows as a teenager that you really remember being important to you?
Yeah, sure. I was suburban rock kid. I think Guns N' Roses was one of the first concerts I saw. It was opening for Aerosmith, '87, and that was mind blowing to me at the time, because it was still like early on when they were just all wearing leather, or all original members, no extra backup singers, and no knocking on heaven's door reggae breakdown. But it was, and that was, and then the hair metal stuff before that too. I certainly got into my 14, 15 and stuff that.
I feel like there was something really just fun about that.
Oh yeah.
It was just like,
it was rock to me. That I liked it because it was just mindless rock, fun music.
I've always loved like Halloween, so like the idea of dressing up and being a little cheesy and like being, it's not like they weren't aware of it either.
Oh no,
it was.
Yeah, it was an interesting time. And I think a lot of it had to do with the guitar player being the focal point a lot of times, and the Van Halen thing, but I fortunately was young enough. I was too young to really be in any bands where we started dressing up and doing the whole thing. By the time I was in high school, it was like the Guns N' Roses thing had happened, so it was, and then into grunge. So it was like, I fortunately missed the spandex. I didn't show up. There's no video of me like playing with spandex and big hair.
That's too bad.
No, there's equally bad shit video of me, but it's at least not wearing spandex. but yeah, and then going from there, just yeah, I went to school in upstate New York and studied guitar and composition, but really mostly played in bands with friends at around and recorded at there was a recording studio, a recording program, and and my buddy Chris Grand, who I still work with to this day and moved to Athens with, and has been in a bunch of bands and since we were 18 or whatever. He was in the recording program, and so you go to class during the day, and then their tests were basically recording bands, and
oh, cool.
You do it overnight, and you do it for free. So I always was able to learn how to record in a studio, not technically, but to play and record while they learned how to and he learned how to engineer, and all my friends were the engineers there and stuff. And then we met our singer Kitty and our drummer both who still live down in Georgia here. And we had a band called Love Apple that played 2 years out there, and then we all moved down to Athens one by one, and then I've been here ever since. So that was 95.
Cool.
Yeah.
We all have those people growing up that are the guy. Sometimes it's an older sibling, sometimes it's just like a neighborhood friend, but
sure.
Do you remember who that was for you? And
what age? Like younger?
More like teenager, when you were getting into rock.
Yeah. I had my aunts and uncle were mostly my two aunts on my mom's side were young. My mom was the oldest, so they were only like 10 years older than me, and so they were had some really cool. They were into the rock stuff.
Yeah,
and they were into like Kiss and stuff, and would go see them. And I remember them like wearing the makeup and going and stuff. But they also had really cool record collections, and I pilfered their Zeppelin albums and like first two Joe Jackson albums and all this sort of, but all over the map musically. But they were definitely rockers, and they lived in Yonkers, New York, and I would take their records when they moved out of the house, my grandmother's house, and left the records, and then I would listen to that first Black Sabbath album and stuff like that. So with all the singer-songwriter stuff that was happening, and then Cat Stevens and all these like 70s singer-songwriters, soft rock stuff was like I loved as well, and always struggled finding in between, and then really in the end that's just kind of still what I basically listen to and do musically. So
well, it sounds like, and I might be wrong here, but it sounds like you decided pretty young to just I'm going to be a professional musician, and there wasn't really much else you were thinking about.
Yeah, for sure. There was just nothing else I was interested really in after 13 or 14, and so I always just wanted to do it, but I was never one to plan ahead very far. And
right.
So, it always just went wherever it seemed like. Yeah.
What are some of the like shit jobs or normal jobs or whatever you want to call them that you had to? Did you ever really have to? I'm sure you, at least in college or.
Yeah, no, I've never really, even down in Athens, I've never had like a real job per se. It's always been I delivered flowers in Athens for 10 years at the Athens florist, and I loved it because I didn't make it much money, but I could tour and play and not drive around, listen to music.
And people are usually pretty happy when you show up with flowers, even if they're not from you.
You'd be surprised over on Village Avenue. You bring something to the sorority house, and if it was like the wrong delivery, you get screamed at. or if it's late, then and the boyfriend says something, and then I've gotten yelled at a lot, but mostly they're happy, and it is nice. And delivering pizza before that, and it's always been just like I worked in a bakery in high school, and just that kind of stuff. And then just always stuff that was not didn't take up too much headspace, so I could just daydream. And I do think a lot of artists like to have those jobs that are not super labor intensive, so you can always just think about what you're doing or write songs in your head or come up with stuff. Or
I think comedians are the same way.
Oh, absolutely, it makes
100%.
sense.
I think we're cut from the same cloth. Though,
yeah, I know.
Like,
Certainly, I know so many comedian and actor folks that I've met or want to be musicians and vice versa. And a lot of them do both, but there's a lot of crossover.
right.
But I agree. I think it's just you're constantly thinking of new bits and new songs and new pieces and stuff like that. And I don't think there's really much choice about it. It's just it happens. So you got to be in a situation where you can let that happen, which on the outside looks a lot like, and a lot of times is just lazy and sitting around and doing nothing. But a lot of times you're working on stuff in your head. And I see it, yeah, with a lot of my friends, musician friends and stuff, and this far away look, and you're coming up with something.
Yeah,
or whatever. But yeah,
and a lot of artists are doing their craft to process trauma or the things that they might be lacking in their personal lives sometimes, or just it's a way to work through emotions. But it's also pretty common for an artist to have a lot of turmoil in their childhood. It doesn't sound like that was the case for you, though, unless I'm missing something here.
No, I mean, not. I was just mostly an anxious kid, and I don't know if it's caused by any real turmoil. I think it was just my personality, and so I think I was overly sensitive, and I think that was a big part of how I always would non-confrontational. So I would escape. I was definitely like I was more apt to run or take a nap or just pretend that it's not happening than confront or deal with a situation. Probably hasn't changed much over the years. But I think in a way going into your head is probably a common way a lot of people who do creative stuff deal with that.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
I definitely, but I generally had a happy childhood,
but the turmoil was more internal, not external.
I think so. Yeah, I was definitely lucky. We lived in the suburbs, and this really is a cool little hamlet in upstate New York, not upstate, but north of the city, and I really liked where I lived and my friends and everything. But I think I always I tended to be a bit of a loner, even though I hung out with people, but I was always in my head. And I think that, again, that hasn't changed a lot. But I do think, I think anytime everybody has certain levels of trauma and things happen to them, and I think that's whether or not I'm writing about it on purpose. Certainly as I got older, I dealt with things like the death of family members and stuff by writing about it. And a lot of times probably a little too, when I was writing lyrics, a little too much in TMI. I definitely think I've had people say it made them feel uncomfortable because of stuff I'm writing about, and I think that
sounds like a dumb problem.
You do, what you do, and obviously being in the truckers, I don't think that's why they brought me in, but I think we're cut from a similar cloth in the sense that a lot of certainly Patterson's lyrics are about personal stuff or just stuff. You write about heavier stuff. I think rock and roll is upbeat music with downbeat lyrics in a very general sense, but I don't know, it always leans dark lyrically.
Do you feel like when you're playing in a band that you have to be able to relate to what they're singing about in order, or is that kind of, you can play your part and if I relate to it, great?
Yeah, I think I should do that more. I strive to do that. I do that more now where I'll listen to the lyrics or read the lyric sheet and try to fit the mood of it. I think the key is even if you don't know exactly what it's about, or you're not listening exactly to the lyrics, it's at least my job is to capture to play the right part and to capture the vibe of it. And I think it's the biggest. I think that's the most important part of certainly a side musician to someone else's song is to understand what they're doing, if not exactly lyrically, musically, emotionally, and that's the toughest thing I think is figuring out what the right part is. You throw all this stuff at it and then you just try to hone it down to what's hopefully the right thing.
Yeah.
Without overthinking it. The chucker that's like.
Big news! Wayfair's end of season sale is here. It's Wayfair's Labor Day clearance. Right now, you can score up to 70% off everything home at Wayfair. Plus amazing doorbuster deals and 24-hour surprise flash deals on home finds in every style. This is your last chance to score end of season savings, and it's happening now. Did we mention fast shipping on everything? Don't wait. Head to wayfair.com today to score up to 70% off now through September 2nd.
Wayfair, every style, every home.
I think I was always an over talker about music and stuff and working stuff out. And do you like this? How about this? How about this? And which is a neurotic New Yorker thing too, I'm sure. But I learned quickly with them that it's more of a you go in there and start playing it and come up and the less said, the better. You don't explain what you're doing or ask. You just do what you think is right, and then 9 times out of 10 it works out eventually with and maybe some guidance. But I think that you're hired because they don't need to think about micromanaging your part, at least with the Truckers, which is great. I know there are other bands where it is you go and they want you to play this part, and it's
Zappa would have just cloned himself to be his whole band.
I mean, he would, when he got like the Synclavier computer synthesizer, he was, I think, in heaven because he didn't need anybody else. And I think with MIDI and his time gone down, had he lived now, he would probably be doing everything in a laptop. And
oh, absolutely.
Or
he predicted iTunes.
Yeah. He probably, I think, would still be doing stuff with other people. I think he knows that you have to have other input, but I think he'd rather just and in ways I like to do that with my own stuff. I do writing music by myself and just doing stuff, but then every time I get together with other people in a band playing my stuff, I realize it's so much better to have other people's input and easier and fun. And so much of at least my life, most of my friends are musicians, and that's how I communicate. That's the thing, you're talking about the turmoil thing, and when you're writing and processing pain, and I think it's true, but I think with me, I struggle communicating on so many levels with people that I think it's just an easier way to communicate.
It's like your love language almost.
It is. And it's, you try to, I don't know, I feel like sometimes I'm more comfortable. The easiest part of, say, touring or something is like being on stage and playing for me, because it's just doing what I'm supposed to do, and I'm most comfortable. The hard part is getting from A to B and talking to people and getting there and figuring out logistics and stuff, but it's all well worth it. So.
How do you approach your solo albums differently than when you're working with the Truckers or even just any other collaborative project?
It's always been the same. I just start writing songs, and depending on back when I was in bands that were doing my songs, we present them at rehearsals and do it. But then once I joined the Truckers and was doing that, it was harder to be in other bands at the same time. And so that's when, and the band I was in was falling apart. And so I had these songs, and basically a lot of it was started off with like home demos. And then my friend Chris, who I mentioned before, has always recorded and mixed and produced albums with me and my solo stuff. So a lot of times I'd show him, and then he'd take what I did recording wise at home and make it sound a million times better, or we would book time in the studio and go in and get our friends and play and record that way. And then usually a lot of my solo albums are mixes of like home demo stuff or recorded in the studio. I have an EP that I did that's like a suite of songs, and that was all done in a studio. But
and it all like runs together.
Yeah, right? Yeah. And that was, but a lot of times it's a mix of tracks from an amalgam of different things, trying to make it all sound good together. So yeah, I really want to get back and get all my buddies into a real live studio thing and cut something as live as possible, especially after the pandemic where it was so much layering and sending tracks.
Yeah.
I'm fine doing that, and that's what I do a lot of the time, working on. A lot of times people will send me stuff that they need keyboards or guitar on, and I'll send it to them. And I love doing that, but I do, in the end, like having if we can get just a live performance of a song.
There's something about the chemistry of being in the room together.
It is.
There's a reason I wanted to do this in person too, versus Zoom.
No, you're right. It is. It's a different thing, and you can really get stuff done so much quicker. I know that's something that jives. That's crazy when we're sending stuff back and forth, working on stuff. We get 1,000 times more done when we're in a room, even for an hour, than send it. And what do you think of this? And changes. Unfortunately, he lives in New York and I'm down here, so it's tough. But I've gotten more into I'm trying to do where I'm collecting songs and then plan save up money, get together and do an album just as much as live as possible, as opposed to cobbling this together and then trying to make it sound like a live performance. And then otherwise I do solo stuff, and I like how Jason Isbell's new album is just him and a guitar. I do that too. I like being able to strip stuff down, and I did, and I was like, oh man, people do that, but it's generally more not on a pop Americana thing or whatever. Usually it's folk person or something where it's just one instrument, but I thought it was really cool to do that.
It's really like telling when the songs can stand on their own.
That's the thing, and I think it really does. You're not hiding behind anything, and I definitely know I personally hide behind arrangement and adding interesting or some trying to be interesting parts almost to distract from the song. And I've learned that in recent times, working with my lyricist friend Pete Smith, we put out an album a couple of years ago, and
I grabbed it the other night.
Oh, cool! Thanks. It's when I know the lyrics are great, and I'm like, oh my gosh, and I can just focus on the music and setting it to a melody that sounds natural, and that's really what I learned is, I think, my strength and what I really enjoy doing, and so that's makes things easier, I think. If you have a good song, you can play it in any form and it'll stand up. That's the goal.
Right.
To try to write like something like that, or what they would have called an evergreen standard back in the day, a modern standard, but it's not easy, but it's fun to try.
So you moved to Athens in '95. How long until you were able to like fully make a living being a musician? At what point did that happen?
2008.
When you joined the Truckers?
Yeah.
So one thing that we've been talking about with other, like a lot of the people I've talked to are fans or part of the community of the fan base of the Truckers, right? And the Drive-By Truckers have one of the strongest, I think, communities in terms of the fan bases. It's something I've heard all of you say repeatedly, and we do a lot to help raise money for Nutria Space and things like that. But that community already existed when you joined, right? So what was it like to join the band that already had this established community. I think like you really were like became very accessible very quickly and were always like super wonderful to everybody from the get-go. But I'm just wondering what that experience was like for you.
It was really cool. It was a learning curve just because I didn't tour a lot and before I joined the Truckers, and no one really knew the music I made outside of Athens friends and bands I was in and stuff. So I was getting used to. We jumped on that tour, and it was a month-long tour, and it was jumping right in. But it was great meeting people. I think the first gig where we had someone make cookies on the bus, and it was Sarah Henderson. But it was like, and I met Luke and Sarah there, and then you'd start meeting different folks and realizing, seeing them at different shows, and becoming friends with them over the years. It's a lovely thing, and it is. I've never been in a band where there was a community like that, and I don't think even other bands at the same level or whatever as the Truckers, you don't really see that. I don't. It's very unique.
No.
I don't think maybe I didn't know it was as unique. Excuse me, at the time.
I think and I've been a fan for 20 years now, and so I feel like I'm just in the last few years realizing how special and unique it is.
Sure,
you know?
absolutely.
Just because we're in it. It's hard to see the forest for the trees when you don't.
I think it's also a band that's not so big that you can't. It's we're accessible in the sense that it's like we play clubs, and we have the events like the homecoming events, and it's like I think Patterson certainly opened the door for it from the beginning, and I didn't really know anybody else that did that kind of thing that would immediately start raising money for Nutria space. Like it was just, I think he learned that from the REM thing, and so I'm sure that was a huge influence. Is you can do good with what you're doing musically, and hopefully change things for the better. And yeah, I was always I've always been selfish previously with bands and just only thinking about making the music and playing the show, and that's the end of it. Granted, also it was also all the same group of friends before that, you know. I was overwhelmed, frankly, at first, but I think in a good way overall. I was finding my way within the band and the organization, and then meeting people and stuff like that, and it was a big learning curve those first few years. And I don't think I really totally felt like comfortable in the situation until really after the pandemic. I think once that happened, it was because I feel like from 2008 to 2020, it was like nonstop trying to feel like a fully fledged member of the band or something. Granted, you're also following up musically after John Neff and Jason Isbell, and it's, oh my God, I always felt a little bit of, you have to try to, how do you do that? How do you maintain with their stuff and that level of musicianship and also fitting in with the music? I did always feel like I maybe didn't fit in musically as much as they did, but I think once I realized that Patterson brought me in, he didn't want someone that sounded the same as the last part. He wanted something different.
Yeah.
I think that was the key. And
well, now this has been the longest there's ever been one lineup in the band.
Yeah, which is crazy. But yeah, during the pandemic, I think it time to stop and think and really appreciate the situation. I always have, but I think I was always so caught up and anxious about it working and doing stuff right, and then now it's, I think I would suspect a lot of people feel like if you made it through the pandemic, it's not totally fucked over financially and everything. If your business still exists or if your band still exists, then it's all gravy. And I do think I feel like we all are enjoying it and having fun playing all the shows are just, there's no drama, and it's just all having fun in a weird way.
I do think
Feeling
there's a
like the
turning
beginning,
point.
feeling like you're like you did at the beginning of playing in bands. Like, it's just like we just go out there and have fun doing it. And certainly this last tour with doing the Southern Rock Opera album has been fun, and I think it pulled us out of the now a little bit, but by learning this older thing. And I don't think really anyone was super excited about doing that kind of thing initially, because it is moving backward.
And it's something y'all have never done. You've never played the same show repeatedly.
We don't use set lists and stuff, so there was a lot of weird shit about it, but in the end, it really, I think it's safe to say everyone really loved the experience. But
I think so too.
I mean, and I don't mean that in the band. I don't know.
It looks like everybody was having a blast up there.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. And I think Patterson, to his credit, made it work in a weird way. We were coming up on an election year, and I think he really wanted to push the political thing, understandably, and try to get us to not be where we are now. But instead of having recent songs that were political, that album I really liked how he worked in what's happening today with what was happening in the 60s and during the civil rights movement and stuff. And so it was a lot of fun. Having said that, I am excited to go back to just playing, hopefully, the new songs and looser sets. But
I think that's part of what made it great too, is like it wasn't forever.
Right.
It was this thing, and to me, it felt like it, because I saw the last night and then the first night that you weren't doing it.
Yeah.
And it was like, I don't think you played a single song that first night off of it at all.
But then at the end, I think we would take like the last few songs, and I think that's something that we can do, which is you take like it's modular, the way that album, the show of the Southern Rock album is like in sections, and if you take those last 3 or 4 songs and decide we need to end a set with it, when I say we, if Patterson or Cooley calls a song from the last 3 or 4 songs and that album, we go and we can end a set like that after playing a bunch of different songs.
Sure.
And we have these songs. I think that was what I loved about it, was the arc of the album. A lot of times albums don't translate into live shows, and when you see people do an album, they do the album, then they do a bunch of songs after to try to ramp up the ending, because not all albums end like a rock show, but I feel like that album does. And so there was you could feel the excitement as the night went on and stuff. It builds up. And so and I think like anything, you take from whatever project you do before, and I'm sure it'll influence whatever the next album is or whatever musically. I feel like it'll be I certainly want to play more guitar, and I think I really felt more comfortable doing that because it was a guitar-based album. And so now I feel like I've learned a lot more in the last couple of years doing that, of how to fit parts in and do the 3 guitar thing. Not that we haven't done that, but I think I've always tended to defer to keyboards because there's already 2 guitars. And maybe certain songs that I thought needed keyboards, maybe don't, maybe.
Yeah.
I think I'm just maybe enjoying the last hurrah of rocking, being able to rock out at it, 51 or whatever. Yeah, I know the Stones are doing it at 8. I know you can still do it, but I feel I'm really enjoying it, I guess. Maybe it's midlife.
How much of your like performance each night is improvised versus what you always play?
It depends. Usually the song parts are set, and then a lot of times the solos are improvised.
Got it. Yeah.
Again, with the Southern Rock Opera, it was a less maybe improvised stuff. What happens is a lot of times from the beginning of a tour to the end, or a project, like so the beginning of the Southern Rock Opera, I was coming up trying to play the guitar parts on the record or something that fit, and then toward the end I'd be changing it every night, and then it would settle. I think that's how we work. We don't really play the album, whatever we record. It's like that. I don't think our albums are necessarily like worked on to the point where they're just like settled, and then that's the only way we play the arrangement. Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers would do that kind of thing more, where they would spend that time working a song and working it till it gets settled, and then play it live like that. Whereas I feel like the Truckers albums are just more of a snapshot of the time, and then it just changes. Certainly my parts have changed over the years from, say, 2016 or whatever. It's, oh shit, there's nothing's happening during this part of the song on the record, which is on me or whatever, but then I can add it on live. Hopefully someone will record it and it'll be, the arrangements they morph.
Yeah, absolutely. And
I
that
think
keeps it interesting for everybody.
Yeah,
you know,
I think it's that. Depends on the kind of band. Certain bands, the arrangements should be tight, but I think this is a different kind of band. So.
Yeah. So the last thing I really want to talk about is I talked to Sloan, and I want to talk about this EP that y'all did together. It sounds, and one thing that he said that I thought was interesting, but I wanted to bring it up now instead of earlier, was the way his recording process is almost all like sending tracks, right?
Yeah.
Originally, early on.
Sure.
When he first started doing these, and he said that made him a little less meticulous about re-recording parts or things like that, because it's not just, oh, let's lay down another track. It's, okay, go back, set up your stuff, record it again, and then play this whole thing. But so that was just something that like I thought was interesting about the dynamic between the way both of y'all prefer recording in some ways too. But what was that like? What was it like working with them?
Oh, it was great. So I knew Sloan around town, but I didn't know that I knew he had played in the past, but he hadn't played with bands around town. And so when he said he's working on this album, and he sent me some tracks to play on, and I was like blown away, because I also wasn't sure. He's got such a Catholic taste musically, and judging from all the bands he recorded, that I didn't know what it would be musically, and I didn't expect it to be so pop oriented in a sort of a classic rock pop sense, and so I was really thrilled and really had a fun time. When people send you stuff, it can range from something that's up your alley to something that's totally, what do I do to this? I don't know how to do it. Because a lot of times if someone sends me a message and asks if I can record, if I'm free and home and can do it, I'll do it. And
I'll cut that part out.
No, I love it all. I love doing it all the time. But sometimes it's just not. You realize it's harder for me to. But with him, that's the thing. It's not a quality thing. It doesn't fit stylistically of what you do, and do you know how to make a part for it? And sometimes it's harder, but with him it was just like very much the same, in the same wheelhouse. In my wheelhouse, the same style as that. So I could send him a guitar, I could pull up a song and I would do a guitar solo, and it would be easy because it would be like a few takes. And also he was very like loose about what he wanted and trusted you to do whatever, and it was great. Then so I played on a few songs on his first album, and now I know the next album is with my former band.
I think it's that band now.
Yeah, and it's guys I've played with for years. The Lane Brothers, I was in the Possibilities with, and they played in the Guilty Pleasures with me too, and they have their band, the Lanes, and then Brandon played bass in the Arcs, and it's just the incestuous family of musicians, and so unfortunately I wasn't able to be there and cut live with them, but we're all on the records and stuff, and so the basis of it is you want to at least have the rhythm section be as live as possible, and then overdub. Inevitably, everything you ever hear is overdubbed, no matter how live a band cuts. And although I did a few with my other project, Jay and the Boulevardians, we cut our thing was like no overdubs, so there was a lot of fun time. You got to do 15, 20 takes, but then you get it live and it's amazing. So that's the goal. But I'm excited. The stuff Sloan's this new album is killer, and it's like the same vibe of songs, but just full rock band going. I think Sloan. I can't speak for him, but I'm sure. Talking to him, I think we both love being able to work on stuff by ourselves and do that, and it is great. But there is, I do think the goal generally is to get a real drummer, especially with rock music.
Right.
That's the thing. It's if you're doing dance music or whatever, or folk or whatever, you don't need but the most important person in a rock band is the drummer, and it took me years to learn that, but it's true. If you have a bad drummer, you have a bad band. It is. But this project, the Split EP, was basically we each took 2 songs that we had, and I picked 2 songs that I had recorded in the past and never released, and my buddy Chris, who I talked about earlier, mixed it for me, and then we had someone master it, and so but they fit really well. It's just like the sort of bubblegum music theme really crosses over. I love his 2 songs on there, like the Ramones meet the Cars, and neither of us got shot, so I think we're okay. I don't think I locked the door, but we're all right.
Yeah, he said he takes much more of like a Steve Albini approach than like a Rick Rubin approach when he's recording.
Yeah.
So he's much more like, I'm just trying to like document what they want to do to the song and things like that.
Yeah, it's a trip, man. I love working with him. I've known him for so long. It's really cool. Working on this project is awesome. He's so driven. He's just like making music all the time. It's like inspiring.
Yeah.
And I think I have been doing it with the Truckers for a while and doing other people's music mostly, but it definitely pushed me into really want to try to get my stuff done more and try to not get any younger. So
none of us are.
No.
Before I let you go, you've alluded to a few of these past projects and current can you just like list, if people want to listen to more of your music, like solo music,
sure.
Can you list some of those older bands that are, especially
absolutely.
ones that are available to find on streaming and things like that?
Yeah. The first band I played in when we moved here was a band called Love Apple, and we had an album called Tom Ryan, but it's not on streaming, and it's only released on CD in the late 90s, so that would be something in a pawn shop or thrift stores in Athens probably is where you could probably find those. But as far as stuff that's streaming, the Possibilities, Chris and I joined the Possibilities in late '99, and we did an album with them called Way Out.
I love that record.
Oh, cool. Thanks, man.
Yeah,
I love it too. I wish someone would put it out. If anyone hears this and wants to put it out, it's great. And they did an album before that was self-titled, The Possibilities, and then that's available as well. And before we joined, and then it's great. And then I was in a band called Nutria after that, and there's 2 records I believe that are available streaming, and then there's a bunch of solo albums I did. First one was Mess of Happiness, and that's 2011, and then I did an EP called The Bittersweet from 2015, I think, and then Back to the Hive, I don't know, it was 1920. It was during the pandemic, I guess we finished it, and then the last thing I did was a Gonzalez Smith with my friend Pete Smith, the lyricist, and that came out a couple of years ago. And then I just, with the Jay and the Boulevardians project, there's a fella in town, Grady Thrasher, who's a great dude, who he basically wrote lyrics and had me write music, and then brought all his friends in, and we recorded all these songs live, and started off as like 20s, 30s sounding jazz stuff, and then now it's just spans all kinds of different styles, and John Neff's playing with us now too, so now we got
cool.
killer pedal steel and saxophones, and
I saw him Saturday night.
Yeah,
It
yeah,
was good to
great.
run into him. Yeah.
Yeah, he's awesome, and I love being able to play with him again in that project. And then I played briefly with the Bad Ends, and he's in that too, and that was a lot of fun. And I'm sure there's more, but those are the main things that I've been doing.
If I can add anything you didn't mention to the description.
Oh,
of the
one more.
episode,
Last year, we released on a local cassette label, Attaboy Tapes, this project I did probably 2006-07.
Oh, cool.
Called the Inflatable Orchestra, which was all instrumental, and so that's streaming now too.
He's not only on cassette.
Yeah. It might. I think it's streaming. I don't know. I haven't checked, but I'm pretty sure it is. But I have cassettes if anyone wants them. That's the other thing, is I need to put stuff up on Bandcamp, because I have stacks of vinyl and stuff in my house. Yeah, and I did a 45 also with the band Eyelids from Portland, friends of mine, and that was really fun, where I wrote a song and they played it, recorded it, and they wrote a song and I recorded it, and it's really cool. So,
That's awesome. I love that concept.
yeah, it's great, and that's you can find it on there.
Man, you're busy.
Yeah, I am and I'm not. This is all over a long period of time, and there's also a lot of unreleased stuff. And now I'm working on a movie with a friend, so I'm trying to get into. I'm playing guitar. He's scoring this movie, and I'm playing guitar because he's a keyboard player and he needs guitar. So I've been learning how to do that. So I definitely want to get into that more. So that's been honestly keeping me busier than that's real work. Like the band stuff is. I'm not saying it's not work, but it's not. It's you get together, you do stuff, you write songs. There's breaks in between. You play live. It's all there. It's also what I know how to do. But then this is writing to picture and strict deadlines. It's
when somebody's like managing the tour and all the like telling you where you to be and when you need to be there and all that sort of thing.
Oh yeah, when I do my tours, it's only basically when someone asks me to open for them, is because I can't put it all together. You know?
Yeah,
it's a lot.
That's a whole other job.
It is. It's a lot of other jobs, and I respect folks who do it. But I like playing live, and I love playing especially with the Guilty Pleasures with my band. But we can't tour all the time, and I'm not. I love performing live, but I think it's with the time I have, I try to record more when I'm not playing with the truckers or doing other stuff. So it's all a matter of, again, as you get older, you try to focus your energies. I think I've always just scattered them all over the place, and now I'm just trying to hone in on stuff.
I really appreciate you being here, man.
Yeah,
it's been great. You make sure to catch the truckers this summer on tour with Deer Tick and Thelma and the Sleaze.
Yeah.
Real quick, tell me about the Caverns venue, because I know y'all are playing that in August, and it's one of the most unique places in the world.
Have you been?
I have not, but I think I'm coming.
You should. Yeah, you should. It's killer. It's in Tennessee somewhere, and I forget exactly the town, but it's like you basically, if you walk into the cavern from the outside, it's about a 5-minute walk to get to the stage. So you're well in there, and it's just you're playing in this huge cavern, and it's cold and it's dank, but it's.
Do they make you turn it down a little bit?
I don't, I mean, I remember because we played with Wednesday, and they were loud, and it was. I'm sure you have to be under a certain decibel level, but I think it seems louder because it's like just echoing and reverberating. But it sounds good. It's so big that it's not like bouncing like crazy. It was pretty special. I'm looking forward. I wasn't sure if we'd ever do it again though.
No, I was when I saw y'all were doing it again, I was like, I think I really need to make that happen.
Yeah, it'd be neat, man.
If you can catch any show there, it sounds like a really amazing place.
Absolutely, yeah.
Thanks again, Jay.
Thanks, appreciate it, man.
That was my interview with Jay Gonzalez, one of the nicest people in music, period. He's done incredible things over the years for people I care about. He's always made a point to come say hi to my kid when I'd bring her to shows. Just one of the best guys out there. Not to mention an incredibly prolific musician. Everything he touches sounds great. So check out all of his projects. I've got them linked in the description. Check out the Drive-By Truckers on tour right now. And check out their entire catalog. They're literally one of the best bands ever. And they just keep getting better. Thanks for listening to Overeducated and Underemployed. Thanks to Sloan Brothers for our theme song. Thanks to Lee Baines for inspiring the title. Hit that subscribe button. Thanks for listening.